Hello, my name is Raluca Scona, and I would like to present the paper Robust Underwater Visual SLAM Fusing Acoustic Sensing. This work was done in collaboration with Elizabeth Vargas, Jonatan Scharff Wilners, Tomasz Luczynski, Yu Cao, San Wang, and Yvan Petillot as part of the Orca Hub at the Edinburgh Centre for Robotics. Visual SLAM is challenging in underwater environments. Visibility is poor, many environments are textureless, and there could be small particles floating in the water. The video on the right illustrates some of the difficult conditions encountered during underwater asset inspection. These can cause state-of-the-art systems, such as OrbSLAM 2, to fail. However, robust visual SLAM is necessary for autonomous navigation, inspection, and reconstruction of underwater assets. We propose a method that fuses vision with acoustic sensing, typically used on underwater robots, to achieve robust operation under these challenging conditions. First, I will describe our robotic platforms. We work with the BlueRov, a small and lightweight robot, when prototyping solutions for water tanks or situations where the water is very calm. The Falcon ROV is heavier and can better handle water currents typically encountered in offshore trials. However, both platforms are equipped with similar sensors: a stereo camera, a DVL which provides 2D linear velocity estimates on the horizontal plane, a gyroscope which provides 3D angular velocity, a depth sensor on BlueRov which estimates the vertical distance to the surface, and an altimeter on Falcon which estimates the vertical distance from the bottom. Next, we describe how these sensors are used. We make use of two building blocks in our estimation process, namely acoustic odometry and visual SLAM. Acoustic odometry refers to the process of fusing information from the DVL, gyroscope, and altimeter or depth sensor to produce a 6D estimate of the robot pose that drifts unboundedly over time. In our system, this fusion is done using an extended Kalman filter in the case of BlueRov and using the proprietary C-Byte copilot in the case of Falcon ROV. The second building block is OrbSLAM 2, a state-of-the-art feature-based visual SLAM system which uses a graph formulation to represent camera poses and landmark locations. These quantities are solved for through bundle adjustment and pose-graph optimization. OrbSLAM works well when the motion of the camera is smooth and the visibility conditions are good. On the right, we show an example of such a scenario, where BlueRov slowly executed a circular trajectory around a rectangular structure. The water is very clear, and the robot moves slowly, so OrbSLAM can well estimate the trajectory and the shape of the structure. We propose to formulate pose residuals using acoustic odometry motion estimates and to include these residuals within OrbSLAM's graph formulation to increase its robustness to challenging visual conditions. We use a transformation matrix T to represent the motion of the camera coordinate frame C between time indices I and J. Both OrbSLAM and acoustic odometry provide estimates for this motion, marked with lowercase v and a respectively. While the raw acoustic odometry pose is expressed in the DVL coordinate frame, denoted by capital A, it can be transformed to the camera coordinate frame, assuming that the extrinsic calibration between the DVL and the camera is known. The relative pose residual penalizes the difference between the camera motion as estimated by OrbSLAM and the camera motion as estimated by acoustic odometry. This ensures that pose estimates from OrbSLAM follow and are consistent with acoustic odometry estimates. An important implementation detail is that the two odometry sources do not have the same frequencies. On BlueRov, the DVL runs at 7 Hz, while the camera runs at 30 Hz. This means that relative pose residuals can only be formulated for a subset of the poses estimated in OrbSLAM. We describe how our pose residuals are included in the different components of the OrbSLAM graph. Tracking refers to the real-time, frame-to-frame camera pose estimation. Here, we include a relative pose residual only if both current frame and the reference keyframe have an associated acoustic odometry pose. Local mapping happens when a new keyframe is inserted into the map. Bundle adjustment is run over all keyframes in the covisibility graph, and we include relative pose residuals between pairs of keyframes whose corresponding acoustic odometry poses are close in time. A diagram of the factor graph formulation for this problem is shown on the right. Finally, loop closure is triggered when a loop is detected and global pose graph optimization followed by bundle adjustment is run. In both optimization procedures, we include pose residuals between pairs of keyframes with corresponding acoustic odometry poses that are close in time. We also propose a simple method to support multiple maps in the case that visual tracking is lost. Currently, OrbSlam supports a single map and enters relocalization when tracking is lost. This is problematic in practice if the robot executes a single scanning motion in its environment. We propose instead to initialize a new map whenever the robot reaches a scene where visual odometry can work again. This new map is then connected to the previous map by using acoustic odometry to connect the first keyframe of the new map with the last keyframe of the previous map. Finally, we only rely on loop closure to detect if we have returned to a previously visited area. While this method does not represent full multi-map support, we found it useful in practice for handling cases where a robot performs a single scanning motion and where visual tracking is lost at a particular point. The diagram on the right illustrates the acoustic odometry link between the old and the new map. We perform quantitative evaluation of our system using BlueROF in a controlled environment. The task is to inspect a small rectangular structure, and we use an underwater motion capture system to obtain ground truth estimates of the robot trajectory. We try to mimic some of the difficulties of field data by varying the speed of the robot and the illumination in the scene. The configuration of this environment is shown on the right. We evaluate our system over 3 sequences. Easy loop is a control sequence where the robot moves slowly and the visibility conditions are good. The video on the right shows the performance of our system in this situation, as the trajectory is well estimated and the reconstruction is of good quality. OrbSlam also performs well in this sequence, and both methods have low trajectory errors. In the sequence hard loop, the robot moves fast while the lights are off. In the lights sequence, the robot moves slowly, but its lights are switched on once during this trial. The images on the bottom right are samples from these two trajectories. In both of these sequences, OrbSlam fails to track, while our system can successfully operate. We also perform qualitative evaluation using the Falcon ROV in unconstrained environments. 2 of these experiments are performed while exploring small submerged structures in water tanks. We also evaluated our system on field data recorded at the offshore renewable energy catapult facilities in Blyth, UK. All experiments contain poor illumination and visibility conditions, while the Blyth trial also contains small particles floating in the water from algae attached to the structure we inspect. This video shows the performance of our system in the OSL loop sequence. Note the low light and poor visibility when the robot is moving along the wall. While OrbSlam fails quickly, our system is able to track through the whole sequence. The rectangular shape of the reconstruction and the straight walls indicate that our system is working accurately. This video shows the performance of our system during the challenging Blyth sequence. The only illumination source here is the robot's light, and the only textured region is the structure itself. Visual SLAM is not suited for such conditions, and OrbSlam fails at the start of the sequence. Our system leverages acoustic odometry and manages to track robustly. The reconstructed gate and beams from the structure also look correct and consistent with the visual input. In this sequence, the Falcon ROV is inspecting a tube-like structure. This experiment is also very challenging, as the tube occupies only a small portion of the field of view. When Falcon ROV loses sight of the structure, OrbSlam fails and cannot recover. Our system, however, can continue to operate by relying on acoustic odometry. To conclude, we have shown that the integration of acoustic odometry within visual SLAM can result in a more robust operation in challenging visual conditions. We reported experiments on 2 robot platforms and have observed increased robustness in our visual SLAM system under a variety of conditions. In our work, we have made the assumption that the DVL works well throughout the duration of the whole trial. In practice, this assumption should be relaxed, and our system could be extended to support handling of gross outliers from the DVL, or to support the case where the DVL loses bottom lock. We are also interested in integrating dense mapping in our system to provide more useful asset reconstructions for our inspection tasks. Thank you for listening.